The latest episode of The God of High School is definitely a return to form after last week's episode 4 of God of High School, which I'll get into in just a moment. But the point is that episode 5 that just aired today easily is probably the best episode of this series so far, in my personal opinion. And the reason why I say that is because when you just look at the artwork, to the way there was emotional tugs on your heart, to the way things were presented, the voice acting, everything about this episode was relatively good. It is a really good episode, and I especially love the artwork and the fighting scene in the middle half of the episode. But the point, though, is that this is definitely showcasing that God of High School has not fallen down and, can't get back up on its feet and be able to actually present quality content. It shows that last week's episode that many had a problem with, and I had certain problems with myself, wasn't necessarily to stay here and remain a major problem throughout the rest of the anime series. So I guess it's fitting to talk about last week's episode since I didn't technically talk about it. So last week's episode was focusing on our characters trying to stop a marriage ceremony with Mira and this dude that pretty much randomly pops up at the beginning of the episode. And to just be completely honest, I am not the biggest fan of last week's episode. Now, do I absolutely hate God of High School because of a bad episode? No. I'm not like that. However, I will definitely say that it was the weakest episode of the series so far, and there was things about it that definitely did not feel good whatsoever. Now, this is obviously coming from someone that is a anime only. I have not read the, webtoon of the God of High School. I've only read certain parts, and so I'm kind of unaware of what necessarily was skipped, changed, or whatever. But I have heard that last week's episode was heavily altered. There was a lot of rushing, etc. And from what I found out from webtoon readers as well, is apparently that many webtoon readers don't like that arc as well. So it kind of being rushed is for the better, most likely, from what I was told. But regardless of that, when I just look at the fundamental theme of last week's episode and I compare it to episode 1, 2, 3, and now episode 5, episode 4 is just such a different beast in comparison to everything else that's been presented from this series. I mean, literally, let's look at this. Literally, since the first episode, it's been literally non-stop action. Action, fighting, character progression here and there with a little bit of backstory sprinkled in. I'm not someone that needs just fighting, but when you have such a radical tone shift like episode 4 was and don't do it right, it can definitely irk a few viewers of said story. And I think that's kind of what happened, because going into episode 4 after 3, many did not expect an episode like that, expecting seeing Mira apparently getting, approached by someone's like, hey, let me marry you and all that, let's be together, and then she somehow agrees, and you're like, wait, what? Like, this just feels so fast, it feels so quick, and, the age difference, and then just the fact that we don't know anything about this character, and he comes out of nowhere, just everything about it felt very quick, very rushed, and just did not mesh well with everything that's already been presented from the story thus far. Now, granted, we do know a little bit about Mira's backstory, so it does make sense why she would marry someone to kind of, spread the name of her swordsmanship, but it doesn't change the fact, though, when we look at everything that was presented throughout episode 4 and the previous episodes, it just doesn't meld right. And so, let's actually discuss the problems I had with it. So, one of the big major problems I had, besides obviously the character coming out of nowhere, etc., is that Mira as a character was shown throughout episode 4 to have her own motivation, her own will, strength to be able to achieve, her swordsmanship to be known by everyone, to be actually recognized and not be a dying swordsmanship where she's the only one to inherit it. From everything that's been presented, she's been very strong-willed. She's been a very strong character, even in, episode 3, episode 2, episode 1, she had this fiery personality. Just everything about her really showed that she was a great character. She was able to be there thanks to her own efforts. No one else kind of carried her to that position. She actually got there by herself. And so when episode 4 comes around, it's kind of like she kind of loses her way from what made her her. She lost her way in terms of like, okay, so, I can't do this by myself. I need someone to spread the name of my swordsmanship, and, I use them, they use me. And it's just like, everything about that did not sit right with me, because it's like, like there was no reason for her to come to that conclusion and want to marry a guy instantly that really she didn't know anything about. But on top of it, it was very clear that he was using her, and she even said she was using him, so it was already a toxic relationship. There was no love there to begin with. But the main point is that she never fell down and felt like she couldn't accomplish something by herself. There was never any event that happened in episode 3, episode 2, or episode 1, and even in 4, where it made us believe that Mira could not accomplish something and be able to showcase her swordsmanship. I mean, yes, she did lose at the end of episode 4 to Han, but that's not the point. The point is that she lost motivation before that fight, which just makes me wonder, like, why would that happen? I would understand if she lost the fight with Han, if it instantly she went into this whole issue and wanted to get married quickly because she felt like she couldn't participate in the God of High School anymore or do anything or get her name recognized, which would result in her swordsmanship to die off and she would be the only one to inherit it. So I would understand if the position of that marriage stuff was after what happened with Han, but obviously it was before it. So where could this be placed that would actually make sense? Let's go back to, I think, episode 2 of God of High School when Mira lost her sword thanks to Jin and when it fell into the water. When that scene happened a few episodes back, you know, it would have made sense for Mira to feel lost, very isolated, feeling like she wouldn't be able to accomplish anything because she lost the sword that was a symbol of what her mentor gave her. And it would make a lot more sense too when she actually fundamentally loses the sword at the end of episode 4, if she lost it because the dude managed to find it, he presented it to her, then she wanted to marry him because he presented the sword to her, and she's like, oh, I finally have my sword back and all that, and then it also resulted in her finding out that he was using her, she was using him, and then, you know, she gave up the sword because she didn't need the sword, she had the will that was passed on from her mentor to her, and she no longer needs an object to carry on that legacy. There's other ways that could have been done to handle this. If she would have lost her will to progress as a person after that, that would have made sense, but once again, she overcame that, Jin, and then found the sword and gave it to her. So just everything about episode 4 just does not feel right. It feels very rushed, it feels very crushed together. It was like thrown in there for, honestly, just to be thrown in there. The only purpose of episode 4, at least when it comes to the marriage stuff, is that she got hurt, which is what resulted in her losing against Han. If she wasn't hurt, she probably could have won against Han. But even then, after episode 5, Han demonstrated himself that he was incredibly powerful, which is ridiculous, which I'll get into that in a moment. But I just feel like everything about episode 4, the only thing that's really important about it, actually there's 2 important things. One important thing is that the dude that kind of introduced himself to Mira was a guy from that cult that we saw a few episodes back, and they're obviously doing something very shady with this God of High School and people with powers, etc. But besides that, it's Mira getting injured. That was the only importance from that episode, and I'm just like, really? Like, really? It's just... yeah, it's a throwaway episode. It really is a bad episode. I mean, it looked good. Like, animation-wise, voice acting, everything about it looked good. But when it came to the plot, that was not good. I don't know what happened there, but that was not good. Episode 5 comes around. Now, episode 5, like I've already said at the beginning of this video, is a complete 180. Like, this is a return to form for this series. It is where God of High School once again shines brightly and showcases that it is a really good story, has really good characters, has great action, good animators, good art style, just everything about it is absolutely great. And so this is what made me very happy to see. After I finished the episode, I sat back and I was like, okay, I'm very thankful that the series isn't slowly going down a spiral and getting worse and worse. It's actually going to get back up and do really good once again. And so this episode is why I'm really happier now. Like, I'm excited now for the next episode. I'm excited for the series because it seems like it's not losing its way. It's actually maintaining the integrity of what makes God of High School God of High School. Now, okay, let's get into the plot now. The main message of episode 5 is the ramifications at the end of episode 4 with what Han did to Mira when he punched her, used her weakness like her injury against her, and she lost the fight. Now, we know why he did this, though. The reason why he did this was because of what happened with his friend. His friend was literally at the edge of his life. He was literally about to die. Like, he was at the end. And he, obviously, in desperation and worry, wanted to win because he knows that if he wins, that he can potentially use the, nano machines, the nanotechnology to be able to save his best friend. But obviously, we know the outcome. His friend was not saved in the end, thanks to this technology. It was used too late, and obviously he passed away, which gave, Han really good character development. He got a lot of character development in this episode, which is amazing. He isn't just a brick wall anymore. There's a lot of personality behind him, which I truly appreciate. Which, getting into that, so his struggle, he had a major mental struggle throughout the episode. He tried to shut it off. He tried to basically not care about Jin, not care about Mira, but in reality, he did care about them, and it was thanks to his first real friend that woke him back up to realize what he also has in front of him, even though, his first friend is now long gone. Gone for good now, not coming back unless Dragon Balls exist in this series, since this is technically, I guess a nod to Dragon Ball. This series kind of, takes inspiration from it. At this time, the dude's gone, which means that he now needs to move on forward and realize that, yes, it sucks, he lost something, but he can't just sit down and not move on with his life. He needs to see what he currently has, which is Jin and Mira, and that final moment at the end of the episode where he's being carried by both of them is truly beautiful, because he realizes now he's not alone. He's not walking this path by himself in this world. He does have friends and people that care about him, and he wants to help them out as well, so that is a major plus. And so I do like how the mental state of Han was done throughout this episode. I also like how Jin was someone that was very upset with Han, but he knew for a fact something was going on. He just didn't know what it was. And I also like how Mira kind of pitched into Han, don't tell him and all that. Don't tell him anything. And when they're talking about Jin, they're basically like, if he knew why you were acting like you did, he wouldn't fight you seriously, which would ruin this entire final fight between you two. So we don't actually want that. It felt like a very Goku moment. I don't know. It felt a very shonen, main character moment, which is something I actually really enjoy. I really do enjoy that little element to shonen, even though I know many might not like that because it's a cliche, a trope, etc. I actually appreciate that to a certain extent. Now, the main point, though, is let's get into power levels. Okay, so it's very clear. Now, when it comes to the strength of what we've seen from our characters thus far, we're just at the beginning. Because, we're just now seeing some certain power start to pop up. We're seeing Jin using these clearly strong, kicks and stuff that have, this aura around them. But obviously, the aura is more of a visual representation. It's probably not something that's actually going on. However, you're not going to tell me the stands that we've been seeing is not something that's actually there. Because apparently, people are able to see them. So, what I think is going on here is that we're at the edge of what, the fighting style is going to be like. And I feel like whatever happens after this episode is finally going to get into showing us what the real power scaling of this series is in terms of what characters are truly capable of. I mean, look, we had a dude literally crush an island at the beginning of God of High School, so we know these characters are definitely on island level, town level of destruction, which can probably go even further beyond. So I'm just kind of interested to see where that is going to go. But overall, episode 5 is fantastic. There is a beautiful segment of artwork as well when you see the, Jin and Han go at each other. I love, the painted style, it looks like water painting in the background. Just everything about that was super unique. I was very blown away by that. It does look a lot like a webtoon. I've seen a few webtoons. I haven't, read, as many as probably many of you guys out there, but I've read quite a few. And when I saw that, water painting, the, art style and animation in the middle of the episode, it reminded me of some webtoons. It felt like a webtoon literally coming to life and being animated, and I was very impressed. I think that the animators really went all in. The director, the animators, everyone that was in charge of this episode really went in and showed their passion for this story, which is all I can really ask when it comes to a series and a good show. So yes, episode 5, fantastic. The series has returned to what it was, quality and greatness, and, I feel like episode 4 was just more of a fluke. I feel like that was just a one-off episode that was probably kind of bad with its source material. I could be wrong there, haven't read the series up to this point, but most likely the source material wasn't that good, and it resulted in that rushed mess, and then we have this episode which kind of corrects that, and we get back into the quality that the series is known for. But yeah, I want to leave it at that, though. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, how you felt about this week's episode of God of High School. And I know I might have upset a few people about my opinion on episode 4, and I'm just gonna say, look, I don't hate the series, okay? I don't hate God of High School. I love this series. It's great. I love this episode. But at the same time, you're not gonna tell me episode 4 was good, like in terms of, like, everything. There's obvious problems and restructuring that could have been done to make that better, but yeah. But okay, I love you guys. Have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And with that, Chibi out.